The problem with that line of thinking is if you're always, waiting for inspiration, you could literally be waiting weeks, you could be waiting months, you could even be waiting years.
Motherfucker, 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 motherfucker. I make this noise.
So, it's been a while since we've done a video. I've been busy with writing new music, preparing for upcoming live shows in support of our album Chaos Create, all kinds of stuff like that. But today we're going to talk about writer's block. Is it real? This has been a subject that's come up quite frequently lately, so I figured I'd do a little video about it, give you my thoughts on writer's block, and that's just what we're gonna do, so let's get into it. So what is writer's block? The dictionary definition of writer's block is, it is the condition of being unable to think of what to write or how to proceed with writing. So I come from the line of thinking that writer's block is not a real thing. And the reason why I think that is because it's not so much as you don't feel creatively, you can't think of what to write musically, or you can't, you don't feel inspired. Personally, I think people get caught up in like, well, I have to feel inspired when I write. If I'm not feeling inspired by anything, then I can't write anything and all that kind of stuff. And I think where people get into a problem, like where I come from is, the line of thinking I come from is like, for me, I've set aside a day a week, usually a day when I'm not doing any work, when I have time off. I set aside one day to solely focus on creative endeavors, in particular music, and that day I strictly focus on writing music and getting out what I need to get out in a musical sense. And sometimes if I feel like I'm not feeling inspired, or I have no ideas, sometimes I'll just mess around and just try new things and get something down. And even if it's not perfect or it feels uninspired to me, I can always set it aside at the end of the day or whenever, and come back to it another time and refine it and fuck it up and change it into more of what I'm looking for. And I think where people get stuck is they feel that they need to be inspired. And the problem with that line of thinking is, if you're always waiting for inspiration, you could literally be waiting weeks, you could be waiting months, you could even be waiting years. It may not even fucking happen. So when I some tips I would say for sussing out that inspiration or sussing out that creativity, I really have to say that like read a book. Like, for instance, I just started reading this Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. I think, from what I gather, it's about political science. Will this end up in future Twitch, future music, inspires future music things? Maybe, I don't know. Likely it will. But read something. It could be anything that you're feeling. You're feeling. I want to use the word inspired lightly, because, well, you know what? Read stuff. Read books, watch videos. Maybe even sometimes maybe it's even learning new techniques on music production. Like, go onto YouTube and watch some videos. Maybe learn a new music production technique and start fucking around with it in your own software, in your own digital audio or workstation or whatever you're using to record, and fuck around with that stuff. sometimes even playing with you know, a synthesizer, like a hardware synthesizer. If you have a hardware synthesizer, like I have a Yamaha EX7 and a Yamaha DX100, you know, sometimes it's just, you know, you mess around and you just play and, you know, keep the record button on and just mess around and just come up with stuff. And, you know, after you're done messing around with your synth, you can go back to the recording, you know, and listen to what you got. Maybe it's shit, maybe it's not, but you know what? You can, once again, you can set it aside, come back to it another day, and come in and refine it, or cut it up into pieces and, you know, take the best parts and organize them in whatever fashion you want to. Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do. As I said earlier, for me, I pick a day. I always highly recommend anyone picking a day to set aside a day strictly for music. And even if you don't feel like it, turn everything on, turn your synths on, turn your digital audio workstation on, your recording software, and just do something. You know, do maybe it's like you create a simple arpeggiation, or maybe it's like a piano line, or maybe you start sampling stuff from YouTube, like newscasts, newsreels, or something like that, or even sampling things like, you know, pots and pans. I mean, that's typical, but or your toilet, or the fucking you know, mixer. You create a mixer feedback loop and you sample the noise that comes out of that. There's so many things you can do. And just want to go back to the books thing here. It doesn't even have to be political stuff. It could be Anne Rice. It could be Edgar Allan Poe. It could even be industrial music history. At least I've found when I'm reading about industrial music history, I find it super inspiring. One of the books that I found highly inspiring was actually Cosi Fanny Tudi's Art, Sex, Music, and it wasn't even so much that there was musical inspiration inside of it, but it was more her work ethic, and just realizing how much work that her and Chris Carter and Genesis P. Orge and Peter Sleazy Christopherson, how much work they actually put into you know, getting industrial records off the ground, getting industrial music out there in the world. It just, to me, that's very inspiring. I mean, sometimes even listening to other music, like maybe you turn on some industrial music and you just listen, and maybe there's a synth line in an industrial song that you really like, so you can go in and into your software and kind of try and recreate that sound, and then make it into something that you want it to be for your song. You don't have to copy songs or anything, but take ideas and go, okay, I like this synth line, I'm going to create something similar, and then record something in the way I want it to sound, and then, you know, whatever. There's all kinds of things to do. Sometimes even, you know, getting out of your typical recording environment. Like sometimes, like I have a laptop. Normally it's just used for playing live with, but I do have digital audio workstation software on it, and fortunately I can use it without having to hook up an audio MIDI interface. And granted, I can't do extensive recording work with it, and technically it's not recording, most of it's just doing soft synths and stuff, but if I'm not using the audio MIDI interface. But sometimes I'll take that, and sometimes I'll go to a coffee shop, plug in my headphones, have a coffee, and just be in a different environment, and you know, create synth lines and use the VSTs within the software. I use FL Studio 9 producer edition, so it's an older version, but it works for me, and I haven't had to upgrade, and I'm not even sure I'm going to be honest with you, because this works, and I know the software, and I can get the results I'm looking for. I will also say, notebook. Have a notebook with you, a notebook and a pen, because sometimes, like, always take something with you whenever you're going out and about. You know, actually, even using your phone, sometimes if you don't have a notebook, you can enter notes into your phone of ideas that are coming through your head, and you know, yeah. I think you get the point. Like, it's not so much for waiting for inspiration, because, like I said, you could literally be waiting years. Maybe it won't even happen. So you have to do things to suss out that creativity and that inspiration, and that's why I don't believe writer's block is a real thing. I think that it's not real. I am always doing something creative, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes, you know, I don't feel like doing it, but I sit down on my dedicated music day and do it anyway, because at least I found once you get into the habit of doing that, things actually come out a lot easier. And sometimes you're just messing around, and then all of a sudden you have a moment of inspiration because you've written something. When you've been messing around, you've written something, and it's like, hey, actually this is pretty good, and then you start building on those ideas and stuff. Those are my tips. Lots of inspiration out there, lots of ways to inject ideas into your music, lots of, you know, sometimes maybe even looking at a photo or drawing something. Like sometimes even doing other art can inspire other art. So like maybe, like for instance, I was years and years ago, I was walking with a friend, and it was nighttime. I can't remember how late it was, but there were these 2 buildings being built, and I was like, you know what, I think I want to capture a picture of this, because it's kind of cool, and these buildings look cool, and I like the lights that come out of the building. So I took photos of those buildings and other buildings at the time, and it actually inspired me to write an album called Darkness Rise. And obviously the album wasn't about nighttime and architecture or whatever, but it inspired the ideas on that album. And yeah, that's what I got for you. I hope you found this video valuable. If you did, please give it a like. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. If you feel you're suffering from writer's block, you know, throw a question to me about suggestions. I have all kinds of ideas for people that feel they're experiencing writer's block. If you feel this video has value, please share it. And if you like what's on our channel, subscribe. See you in the next video.